Welcome to the webinar. My name is Michael Swack. I'm the director of the Master's Program in Community Development. And we'll have a short webinar today, about 15-20 minutes, just going over the program, the content of the program, a little bit about how the program works, a little bit about financial aid and the budget, and about careers, and finally a discussion with one of our alums, Lindsey Hajduk, who's joining us today. I'm also joined today by my colleague, Robin Husslage, and Robin will be checking the chat. So if you have any questions as I go forward, please type your question into the chat, and I'll stop from time to time to answer any questions that come into the chat room. Let me start by just saying a little bit about the Carsey School. The Master's Program in Community Development is one of the academic programs at the Carsey School. Carsey School has a number of research activities and centers. In fact, I run a center called the Center for Impact Finance. We do research and outreach. We have a program called New Hampshire Listens, which is a civic engagement initiative. And then we have 3 academic programs, a Master's in Public Policy, Master's Public Administration, and Master's in Community Development. So I'm going to be talking about the Master's. You know what? I forgot, Robin. We have 4 programs now. We just got a new one, the Master's of Global Conflict and Human Security. I apologize for that. My brain hasn't fully adjusted yet. I'll be talking today about the Master's in Community Development program. The Master's in Community Development is an entirely online program. I should mention when I say online that it is both synchronous and asynchronous. That is, most of the classes have sessions that meet via Zoom every once or twice a week. So you do see your colleagues and members of your cohort, although much of the work that you do in online in small groups and in the papers that you write and the discussions you participate in are asynchronous. So you do have both, and you do see the people you go through with as a cohort. We emphasize the idea of the cohort model because we think it's a really important part of the educational experience. So in this program, most of the people begin the program at the end of August. I say most because there is an alternative to take a course or 2 if you want, if you start in January, but most start with a cohort. And in that cohort, most of the required classes you go through with the same people. So the cohort generally will be between 12, maybe 15, up to 20 people, and you get to know those people pretty well. In taking the courses, there are a series of courses that I want to talk about, but generally the categories are the capstone project, which I'll spend some time on, and then the various required courses in management, finance, public policy, and community development. So here's a bird's eye view of the curriculum. We have a set of 5 core courses, which you see listed here that everybody takes, and it addresses practical issues like organizational management, fiscal management, but also general policy issues like economic analysis, policy analysis, and the integrative approaches to development. That's a course I co-teach with my colleague Lee Farrow, and really looks at asking you to develop your theory of community development. Why do you do this work? What's the theory behind it? How do you test that theory? And that leads into the experiential learning. This is a 4-project sequence that you take, in which you design a project in your community, often at your workplace, and you go through a 4-course sequence, which I'll get to in just a minute. And then there are a series of electives. I've mentioned just a few of them here that you choose to round out your program. So it's a 12-course curriculum. You can take additional courses if you choose, but a 12-course curriculum, 5 core courses, 4 project courses, and 3 electives. The capstone projects are projects that you carry out, again, in your own community. You choose what that project is. Many people ask the question of, what do I do if I don't have a project when I start the program? Well, not to worry. Most people don't have a project when they start the program. That first term, the introduction to the project, gives you an opportunity to think about what's a doable project, How will it work? Should I do it through my workplace? So you have the opportunity to think through and develop and design what your project will be in that first term, and then you follow through on the sequence of courses. The project asks you to collect information initially, look at who your community is, collect information about them, go through an analysis, then you get into the project design course. You develop, we use the logic model. Many of you are probably familiar with that, where you start with what outcomes are you trying to achieve and sort of work backwards to outputs, activities, and inputs. Again, this is the core, really core part of the program. And at the end of the year, when you finish the program, you do a presentation with your other colleagues, and faculty join, and alumni, and you really see the outstanding work that you're able to do. The program itself is 36 credits. As I mentioned before, it's 12 credits, and 12 courses. Each of them are 3 credits, a total of 36 credits in the program. You work with a faculty advisor. The advisor also works with you on your project. Some of you have met maybe already Sanjeev Sharma, who coordinates and advises students in the program. And here's a little bit about how the schedule itself works. We work through what are called E-terms. And what the E-term is an 8-week term. And typically you'll take 1 or maybe 2 courses at a time. So what this gives you the opportunity to do is spread out. I mean, everybody is balancing a life where you're working, you have family responsibilities and the rest. So these E-terms are 8 weeks. And you can see here that one course of study is you might take integrative approaches to development. That's the introductory course. If you take 2 courses, you would take the project and the introductory course. We ask how long. We say graduate in 14 months, but many people take 18 months or even 24 months, depending on how many courses you want to take at any given time. So there is flexibility to go through the program really at your own pace. And like I said, many students choose to take just 1 course at a time, and typically not more than 2. The application requirements for the program, pretty straightforward there. We require a transcript from your bachelor's degree, 3 letters of reference. Those letters of reference can be academic or they can be work references. A personal statement that tells us a little bit about what your interest in the program is, a resume, and the application fee. A little bit about the cost of the program. You see the tuition there for New Hampshire residents and out-of-state residents. We also have a number of scholarship and funding opportunities, some through partnerships with organizations listed there, but number of scholarship and grant opportunities that are available to any student who applies to the program, as well as access to student loans. We will work very hard with you to make sure that the program is affordable to you. I'm going to stop here for a minute, Robin, and see if there are any questions in the chat.
Hey, Michael, let me just check here quickly in both boxes. One question, I guess, is about the capstone project. The question is, can I do mine outside of my organization?
Yeah, you definitely can, and many students do. That is, many students say, well, I'm, look at this education opportunity as a chance to find a new job, maybe move into an area of community development that they haven't been before. For some, it's they've decided they want to do community development there. This is their first exposure to it. So yes, many students, including a lot of people, come in with a pet project saying, I've always wanted to do this. The project gives me the opportunity to start my own program that looks at affordable housing, or start my own look at what are opportunities for micro lending and how can I bring that to my community. So there really are opportunities to do something of your own interest that's outside your organization if you choose.
Thanks, Michael. Another question is, how many students are usually in a cohort?
Yeah, it varies. I think the most we've ever had is 23 or so. I think more typically we'll have 15 or 16 in the cohort.
Great, thank you. That's all the questions I see at this time. please post your questions in the chat box or the Q&A box, and we will then get those out there to Michael and Lindsey. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. Again, the capstones we've had, again, when I talk about projects across the world, it also gives me a chance to talk about the incredible diversity of the student population. The people come to the program is really, to me, the most exciting part of the program. The variety of things that people do, their experiences, where they come from. So when you come in the program, it's diverse in every way imaginable. Diversity in age, diversity in geography, difference in ethnic and racial backgrounds and experiences, and it really adds tremendous value to the program. Here are just a few recent graduates and some of the work that they do. And again, work in careers in affordable housing, nonprofits, NGOs, project management, small business development, a whole range of different careers and work that people do. So if there are no other questions right now, let me move on to introducing Lindsey Hajduk. So Lindsey, welcome to the program, or to the webinar. I'm going to stop share here after people have a chance to look at your work experience. So Lindsey was just before we got on telling us about the weather in Alaska today, and it's even spring-like there. So Lindsey, welcome. Good to see you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for doing this. So why don't we start by just telling us a little bit about yourself? How did you get into this work? What is the work you're doing now? And how did you pick this program?
Sure. So my name's Lindsey, and I live in Anchorage, Alaska. I moved up here in about 2010 and have just been a really kind of fortunate community member to make connections, find opportunities, and find ways to really make an impact in my neighborhood. So I have been doing community work just as a resident and volunteer for over a decade, and have worked in the nonprofit sector in a few different fields, but was really just focusing more and more on how to make positive change locally. And I started working for NeighborWorks Alaska in kind of the fall of 2020, and was really able to put all of my focus, not just my volunteer time, but my professional time, into working on community development, focused on supporting resident leaders and making change in their neighborhoods as they want to see that happen. So I was really fortunate to be able to start working for this organization, yes, during the pandemic, and was supported by my coworkers to, seek additional education and opportunities. And this program came to me as, just something on my radar. I was looking for an online program so that I could continue to work full time and be able to seek this graduate program virtually. And I wanted it to tie into my work, and wanted to also, utilize the partnership that the school has with the NeighborWorks America, that kind of national organization that mine is an affiliate of. So just all these different pieces kind of came together to give me the opportunity to not only further my personal interests, but also my professional interests, to dive a little deeper into community development as a profession, and not just as something I do as a community member and volunteer on the side.
So Lindsey, a lot of people wonder about this project. Can you tell us a little bit about what your project was and how you picked it, and did you know what it was going to be before you started the program? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I didn't know what my focus was going to be more specific then. I wanted it to be something generally around supporting housing within the community, and really dig into the policy and putting it into practice for my neighborhood. And so I started the program in maybe the summer semester, and with an elective. And so then once you start going into those core programs in the fall, I had some meetings with our local planning departments, and I said, I'm going to be pursuing this master's, and I want to put my focus on something that's really going to be moving forward and will make a difference. And so our city's planning director at the time was really excited to get some extra research and support on digging into policy reform for accessory dwelling units. It wasn't necessarily something that I would have picked, but it was something that had some legs. We've had some recent code changes, but they really didn't make enough impact. So the city wanted to go back to it and move forward some reform. And they wanted to do it with more community engagement and involvement, a little bit outside of the typical process that they typically do. So having my ability to, do a lot of the early steps of community surveys and interviews and all these kinds of things that the department doesn't usually do, they were excited to have and partner with me and with NeighborWorks Alaska on. So that was really my focus. It was looking at how residents engage in housing reform issues, and the focus was on accessory dwelling unit code reform within Anchorage.
And what have you been able to accomplish? Where did it go from the start to end? Realizing, again, what we often tell people is it's a project. You go through the sequence. It doesn't mean that it has a neat beginning, middle, and end, and you've accomplished your life goals in the project. But tell us a little bit about what you were able to do and accomplish.
Sure. Yeah, so I was really able to start with that focus in the late fall, winter of 2021. And then over the next year or so, when I was in this program, go through all of the steps and pieces, which kind of aligned with where we were in the community. It was really early on in the reform process. So when I was doing a lot of our assessments and seeking and defining the problem, it aligned with the kind of planning process. But the real life stuff took much longer than the program stuff, which was fine because we were able to align as best we could, and then work on pieces even after the program. So I graduated in the fall of 2022, but we passed our housing reform, the ADU reform, in January of this year. So months later, but
that's pretty good though. It actually worked.
It actually worked. And it was really interesting. Things got, I think, especially interesting in that winter fall time, where there were a lot of community members engaged in opposition and in support. And so really being able to see all these different pieces, the politics of it, different assembly members wanting to make some changes, wanting to make sure that people were heard, and there was a lot more public opportunity. It was really a microcosm of everything that we were trying to learn in a bigger picture for this one piece. And we were fortunate to have the reform pass. It doesn't always happen that way, but it was a really good example of just how the community process deliberative works.
Well, that's cool. So switching gears a little bit, Lindsey, I'd mentioned that this is a cohort program. Could you tell us a little bit about your cohort and what that experience was like and how that worked?
Yeah. So I think our cohort was probably in that 15 people range, something like that. And everyone was from all over the place. Our time difference was probably 12 hours or something like that, from Morocco to Alaska. So it was really great to be able to connect one-on-one with a lot of the different participants. And everyone had such different focuses. Some of them were community-based organizations. Some of them were independent, like you were saying, Michael. Someone has an idea and wants to see it happen and be implemented in their neighborhoods. Some of them were in partnership with a religious institution or just different aid agencies. And you can learn so much from reading case studies and having different projects kind of brought to your attention, but to be able to connect with people who are also trying to work through the same questions and challenges you have at the different steps that you're in, just really helps you think through different opportunities that maybe wouldn't present themselves to you on your own process. So it was really great to be able to not only connect with people at the personal level, but to really dig deeper into the learning around each of these different opportunities.
So, Lindsey, what did you find challenging about the program? I mean, again, one of the things I said is you have to balance a lot of things. You're still working full time and all that. What did you find most challenging about the program, and what strategies did you develop to deal with those challenges?
I think for me, some of the challenges I brought on myself, like I kept a pretty steady load of classes and then just had so much intensive work on the ground in addition to my job. So there were just really long days staring at a computer in the dark because winter is very dark here. And so once I emerged into summertime, I was like, oh, I need to, take care of myself and do a little bit more to just take a pause and a breath. And there are definitely other ways to kind of structure your caseload, especially with just your personal or professional life. But I felt like that was the most challenge. The classes themselves just had so much applicability to what I was doing for my project, but also for my work, that everything really felt integrated and I felt really supported throughout, but it was just a lot of time and energy at a computer more than anything.
So maybe one last question, Lindsey, which is, I mean, increasingly, it's true that people, obviously, with the pandemic, are online a lot, but haven't necessarily taken an academic program online. Was there anything about that experience, online program, that you can share with people in terms of, we still hear people, it's like, well, online, I don't know. It's, what was that like for you? You said that you wanted all online, but what were sort of the pros and cons of that?
Sure. I found it to be really a great setup, of course, because I'm not in the same location as the university and would never be able to take this program if it wasn't available online. But it was also flexible enough that, if you could just plan around the sessions that you had that were synchronous, everything else you could do was at your own flexibility, and coordinating with your cohort members, if you had something to do as a team, might have been the biggest challenge, but that was just working across time differences. And we were always able to find some solutions around it, so it didn't feel too burdensome or anything like that. So I think for me, it was really just the stress of, once you started a new semester, just knowing what time and what day the courses were so that I could plan my work schedule around it, just because a lot of the courses were, in the evenings on the East Coast, but that was in the middle of my day. And so just trying to make sure that I could plan around it was really the biggest consideration. But otherwise, I thought that the flexibility, it was really what I needed. I hadn't been an undergrad for over a decade, and so it was just intimidating to go back into school and think through what that would be like. But to be able to do it on my own terms and have the flexibility is why, is what appealed to me of the program and why I was able to complete it.
Hi, I did see one that wasn't answered, and it was, how long did it take you to complete the program? This is for Lindsey.
That's a great question, and I think I did it quick. I started it in a July semester and then had kind of completed and wrapped up by the following August. And part of that was because of I think it's maybe 14 months is kind of the quick timeline for the program. But because I was doing this in partnership with my organization and was able to get one of my electives to be an independent study that I kind of did concurrently with some of the other required courses. The independent study was was like building off of like a certificate, a professional certificate I already received through NeighborWorks America. And so it just kind of like shaved off another, class that I would have had to take in a future semester. And that was part of me being able to overlap it and make it really applicable to my job and working with my community. I mean, my independent study kind of dealt with some of these pictures behind me. It was, a creative community development project, and really digging into the process and evaluation and getting a little bit more deep into it. And so was able to overlap that with some of the other required courses, and was able to shave off some time based off of that.
Good. Well, then, thank you all for joining us today. Appreciate it. Particularly, Lindsey, thank you to you to
Absolutely.
giving the perspective of a student in the program. We really appreciate your taking the time to do that.
Yeah, thank you.
So thanks, everybody. And we hope if you're interested, you'll follow up. You can have the information about how to contact any of us. And we look forward to answering any additional questions. Thanks very much. Take care, everybody.
Bye all.